Here it is, folks, my review of the Colombian action thriller drama Alias Maria, which was directed by Jose Luis Rujelez Gracia, was produced by Federico Duran, it was written by Diego Vivanco, the cinematographer was Sergio Ivan Castaño, and it was edited by Delfina Castagnino. Now, I was kind of intrigued by the premise of this film because I also saw an anime that was quite similar to this film called Now and Then, Here and There, which also talked about the issue of child soldiers and the cruel world that they have to deal with, and also the the price of humanity and the frailty of it too. And well, it was no surprise that the whole issue about child soldiers has become quite something that has also intrigued certain writers and artists, that they feel rather not only intrigued by it but also frightened by it because these soldiers are still children. Some of them barely even 10 or barely even 12, and some of them have actually reached teenage their teenage years and are fighting in wars and fighting in guerrilla battles, and they're still quite young. So I sort of went into this film with little to no expectations, and let me just tell you that this was pretty much one of the hardest watches I've ever experienced. Now, I have also watched other similar media that was also quite hard as well, but this was also quite up there in their alley. So let's start off with the story. Now, this is nothing new when it comes to the issue of child soldiers. I mean, we opened the film with a woman in the army giving birth, and then we really see just how difficult and just how challenging their lives really are. Not just the women, but also the men of the Colombian army. It's like you could really see just how difficult they're living their lives, especially if you're a woman in the army. I mean, we even find out that for some time, Maria was also pregnant herself, though she couldn't really tell her comrades. And we are quite intrigued by this world as well, but also quite frightened by it because we also see that Maria is only 13 years old, and Yuldar, one of her comrades, is also younger than her as well. And in her case, it's like she's not allowed to give birth in that position. So you could really see that there are a lot of challenging ideas presented in this film, but you could really see that Maria is also a strong character that does hold the weight of this film. And despite that, I do wish we could have also glimpsed into some of their pasts or some of the characters' pasts, thus making this film even more interesting. Though we do get a glimpse of who Maria is as a person. I mean, she is someone who has been battle-hardened and has experienced a lot of difficult times in her time as a child soldier. So she doesn't know how to live as a normal girl, and every time she sees children in school, or even children going out with their parents, it's like you can't help but realize that maybe there's something that she's missing in her life. And that's pretty much one thing about this film that fascinates me. And also there's this whole thing about making sure that that one of the major's baby has to be taken good care of, and well, which is part of their mission. And I don't know why they would have to do it, but for me, that just makes it all the more scared and just makes it makes it feel all the more tense in this film. Though I could wish that they could have had a more reasonable explanation than that. But still, despite that, this story is still quite gripping, and it takes no hostages whatsoever into making you see just how difficult the life of a child soldier can be. And you could really see that deep down, you could also see the longing that they have in the want to be normal, or the want to go back to normal life as children, which makes it even more heart-wrenching. And the cinematography, I felt, was just well done. With well-paced, well-cut edits, this film is definitely a sight for the eyes, especially with all of the close-up shots of the insects doing their work, like the ants and the walking sticks and every other type of flora and fauna. This really makes the film all the more visually, well, gorgeous. And it's definitely a sight for the eyes. And then we get to the music. Now, for the most part, the music is excuse me, quite muted all throughout, but it's pretty much to put you in a situation that really does suit the mood. It doesn't need any orchestral pieces. It doesn't need to be like bravado in its music. It just needs to be atmospheric and just makes you put you in the mind of each of these characters, which really does fit the tone of this film. It uses atmosphere very well, and it just makes you just put yourself into the character's shoes. And not to mention, some of the piano pieces found in this film I thought were just equally well done. Now, the cast of characters I felt were pretty interesting. So, let's start off with our main heroine, Maria. Now, Maria, in this film, she's only 13 years old, and she has to really, try to be an adult in this harsh world. That means she has to really take care of the major's baby. She has to fight. She has to do whatever she can to survive, and she's still very young. And you could see that she has lived a battle-hardened life. You could see through her face, through her demeanor, through everything that she is. You could really see that she is someone who has to go through a lot of stuff and ending up pregnant for only 3 to 4 months. And the fact that she was pregnant that way makes me realize, you see, this girl has lived it very hard. And also her lover, Mauricio. Now, Mauricio at first is quite the charmer, but when he's into battle, he has a one-track mind. There are times that Mauricio tends to be very cruel and very mean, and he's quite repulsive as a character as well. But all the more, that's what kind of makes him kind of fascinating in his own way, because if you think about it, Mauricio has been in this position for many years. So the thrill of the battle, and also the whole life that he has been leading in this army, has made him a battle-hardened man. And he tries his best to try to keep his territory under control, thus, well, not really sure of who's friend or foe, and almost seeing a blur between friend or foe. So at times, his actions can end up hurting others, especially Maria. Byron is pretty much the nicer of the squad that Maria is involved in. He at least tries to be caring and kind, which does make his character all the more beneficial. Yuldar is basically the tag-along kid. Now, there are times that he does seem pretty annoying, but there are times that he can be quite good as a character as well. And I'm not going to spoil what happens to him, but let me just tell you that you will feel like a part of you has died inside, you know? And still, Yuldar, though he's the typical tag-along kid, can have some pretty good moments. I do wish that his past was explored a little bit more. In fact, I do kind of wish that the pasts of some of these characters would have been explored a little bit more. Though with Maria, it's kind of interesting because at least with her, we do get to see that every time she passes around the village in her normal clothing, and every time she also sees school children singing the Colombian national anthem, she does realize that a part of her is missing something that makes her like a normal kid. Going to school, being with kids her age, she doesn't get that. She doesn't have all of that, and instead she finds herself in the position where she has to grow up fast. So I really felt that my heart does go out to Maria. Not to mention the acting is really well done. With Karen Torres as Maria, she does portray her character very well, as in being battle-hardened on the outside, though suffering deep down on the inside. Now, I have seen a lot of critiques saying that Karen Torres' acting as Maria was two-dimensional at best, with her always giving a stoic facial expression every single time. And I think to myself, well, that's your opinion, but I still hold to my opinion that Karen Torres manages to really carry the weight of this film through. And with her case, less is pretty much more. It's like she does convey the pain and the suffering that Maria goes through in this film. And the fact that Karen Torres was only 14 years old was definitely just something that is nothing short than a milestone for her. And I really do hope that she gets a lot more roles in the future, because she does have a lot of potential in getting a lot, more roles in the near future. I could really see a bright future for this Colombian teen actress. And then we have, Carlos Clavijo as Mauricio. He does manage to make his character at first a charmer, and he does manage to bring that raw power that really makes Mauricio even more intimidating. Anderson Gomez as Byron manages to bring a certain type of fondness to this character in his own special way. And Eric Ruiz as Yuldar manages to make him, kind of a sympathetic child character as well. And he does manage to make his character quite the tag-along kid that might grate you at first, but when you get to know him, you kind of realize, okay, he is probably in need of friends and probably in need of people who can trust him and not just look at him as just some kid. So I thought the acting was pretty much well done all throughout this film. So overall, this was really one of the hardest sits that I have ever experienced in my life as a critic for anything. But I have to say that even though there were some problems with the story and problems with the characters, it's still a very well done film. It does have a great amount of pacing and also a great amount of cinematography, which benefits the film. And with that said, I give this film a 4 out of 5 stars. It's a pretty good film. Go check it out if you haven't done it so already. And for those of you who have seen this film, then go give it a second chance. I'm sure that you'll find something new to like about this film. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in later where I review the Mexican psychological thriller film plásticos. Until then, see you later, everybody.